Are you ready for the best damn radio show on the planet? Man Hour Nation, rise up.
You don't want to be every time, no. I would like to personally welcome you to Man Hour After Dark. Say that then. While I bring you the host, Mike, Buck, and Cone. You know what's coming to the stage. Sports talk than what you about to hear right here. I second that.
Go. You know that it's us when we talking about sports. Giving you facts on the field to the core. Tune in, we need the support. 1 hour too short, still listen some more. On all your stations, not dropping no music. Starts like Adidas, but Nike just do it. Down 4 in the 4th, we go for the win. Michael 2 seconds, we taking it in. Buck, Mike, and Combs, you know what's going on. Man, now we're after dark, no LA, we the big spark. No 4th and inches won't cut short. Got the best talking, it's all sports. Buzzing more than buzzer beaters. We coming live all through your speakers, go.
What is going on, Man Hour Nation? Welcome to the best damn sports radio show on the planet. This is Man Hour. I'm your host, Beastie Brandon Combs. If you have not yet done so, please click like, share, and subscribe on whichever platform you're watching us on. Helps us out more than you know. If you're watching us up on Belly Up Sports TV, on Roku TV, or Tiki Live TV, which like what you see, you can head on over to youtube.com/Man Hour. Subscribe for as little as $2.99 a month. Become a member of Man Hour Nation. Once you're a member, head on over to our manhourradio.com. Click on the merchandise tab. Get yourself some hot Man Hour gear. We have hats, shirts, hoodies like the one you see me wearing here. We've got joggers, phone cases, much, much more. Now that I've tried to pay the bills, it is time to talk some baseball, and there's lots of stuff to get to. I'm excited to get to it, so let's welcome my guest for the evening. He is former pro pitcher R.C. Orland. What is going on?
BC, how we doing? Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Always love talking baseball, especially with guys who have played it at the level that you have played it. How's everything going?
Dude, going well. Just keeping up with the theatrics that Major League Baseball is. Glad to see we got guys on the field. It's going to be a little late, but better late than never. And, players took a deal that they didn't want exactly to take 10 years ago. And so, owners had to pay the piper. And so it wasn't surprising, but I'm glad that everybody's back on the field.
Yeah, look, man, I'm always happy when baseball is back. I'm always happy when games are being ready to be played. I actually can't wait for Thursday. As soon as it got signed, as soon as the CBA got signed and they announced that April 7th was going to be the new opening day, I actually immediately put in for the day off at work. So it's something that I really enjoy. Let me ask you though, what happened in negotiations from your perspective? As a former player, what did you see happen in negotiations? A lot of people think that the players stood their ground and got everything that they asked for. I see it from a different perspective. What did you see?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing was the arbitration pool. When you think about having a 6-year contract, which means 3 years of somewhere between $600,000 and $750K a year, and then you've got 3 years to work your way up. My friend who's a starting pitcher in the AL is projected to make $7 million this year in arbitration in his first year. And again, we've talked about WAR all the time. I think he had like a 3 or 4 WAR last year. He's been a former All-Star. So when you look at that, he's projected, he told me before the lockout, to make about $7 million. He's leaving a lot of money on the table, and that's frustrating. That's tough when, again, you never know. So I know that was the biggest part of it. And then the second part was the way the draft was done. Beforehand, for 10 years, they were signing seniors between the 2nd and 10th round so they could save that pool money for later. So that means we're not even drafting the best guys available. So it's just two sides of the coin where it's like, hey, are the players going to get what they deserve at some point? And it's tough. Like you saw, you had to fight for it. You had to fight until 120 days or so.
Yeah, I can't tell you how frustrated I was. And I'm really going to sound like a fan here as opposed to a guy who at some point wants to have a career and working with the MLB. But I really just wanted to punch Rob Manfred in the face repeatedly. when he was doing his press conferences, because this is a guy who comes out and I don't know if anybody noticed this, but when he come out and he announced the lockout, there was a point in his press conference where he actually laughed a little bit and smiled and was joking around with the press. And then when he announced that baseball was coming back and they had signed the CBA, not one smile was cracked, not one joke, not one laugh, nothing. So it almost seemed to me like he was happier that they were being locked out than he was that they were playing games. And from my perspective, I feel like the owners, I feel like they didn't want to play baseball in April. I feel like they wanted a shorter season. I feel for whatever reason, whether it's the fact that the revenue is lower in April, whether it's the fact that you can still, and I think it's still a thing where they can still abuse the service time. I don't know if they got that part of the negotiations in there, but it's something that for me, I looked at it and I was like, wow. I said the owners aren't. I mean, it took them 93 days or something like that, or it took them 40 days before they even made a pitch.
Yeah, it was bad. And like you said, you can tell by their reactions right away. You can't hold your face back. A couple players were calling out Manfred for everything again.
Oh yeah.
There was no incentive for the owners whatsoever to play in April. Again, I'm not sure what that was, if it was to send a message. But nonetheless, I think about wanting to show up for my boss and work every day and be motivated. And again, it's not in baseball, you're not motivated by your boss, and you can make arguments here and there, but it just doesn't leave a good, feeling in your stomach when you're like, hey, this my boss does not care about my best interest whatsoever. I mean, it was blatantly obvious.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The owners care about their pockets at the end of the day. And look, that is kind of the way of the world, right? That's how the rich stay rich. They don't stay rich by giving away pennies on the dollar. They're tight, and that's what they do. So I kind of get that part, right? But what I didn't understand, so baseball last year, their revenue was $10.7 billion in 2021. $10.7 billion. And the players, I believe player salary was a little over 4 million, just over 4 million, which means that the owners are taking over 60% of that pay. Now, yes, there's overhead costs. You got to pay stadium, you got to pay the employees. But when you really think about that, the employees and the stuff inside the stadium actually really pays for itself, with the exception of electricity. Because when you're talking about $12 a beer, I know one keg of beer, you can get about 160 beers out of it. And it only costs you about $150 to get a keg of beer. And when you're selling them at $12 a pop, you make your money back after the first 10 beers. You got another 150 or so beers to go of just pocketing money. And I know enough to know that the vendors don't make squat for cash. Everything that they make is based off of their tips. They actually have to buy, for those that don't know, if you're a vendor in a stadium, you actually have to go in and buy the beer. You have to buy the pop. You have to buy the popcorn, whatever it is you're selling, you have to buy it ahead of time. And then you make your money back by selling it. So for those that when you go out to a ball game and you're like, oh, I'm going to eat or I'm going to drink before, I'm letting you know the vendors have to pay for that stuff as they walk up and down the aisles before they get to walk up and down the aisles. So you have to understand that there is a tipping point. But the owners makes it, and what they were arguing about, after 10.7 billion, they take home 6.7 billion. Let's take the 0.7 billion out of it. Let's just say they take home 6 billion. We were arguing about $100 to $200 million of total money, and that is why we didn't have baseball, and that's why we didn't have spring training when it was supposed to start. Over $200 million. So instead of 6 million, the owners didn't want to just take home 5.8. So I don't get it. I don't understand it. I think that really puts into perspective how the owners feel about the players, just when you look at it from that angle right there.
Yeah, you're spot on. Again, like you said, they're fighting over maybe 0.5%, give or take. It's real frustrating because it seems like there's enough money to go around. And I think I mentioned this on our first interview, probably in November now, give or take. And again, when I was I was only in one Players Association meeting in Big League Camp, 2019. And Bobby Bonilla looked at everybody in the room and said, save your money. Because again, this was projected. They saw it coming. And that part hurt to hear, hey, that things aren't healthy, A, but then B, he said that every team is profitable. He said it doesn't matter what the competition on the field looks like. If your team goes 0 and 161, they're still profitable. And that's why the competition aspect about putting the best players on the field gets eliminated because they're not incentivized to. And so that part wasn't fixed, and that's frustrating. And again, it's tough when you've got, mid-market teams, blah, blah, blah. But nonetheless, I think all we can ask for as fans is for teams to put their best foot forward at all times. And
Yeah.
it just really doesn't seem like it's there. I feel a disconnect. Again, I'm hoping the new CBA changes that. But at the end of the day, all we can ask for is the best competition and the best show and the best entertainment. And I'm not quite sure it's there yet.
Yeah, and I think that I think some owners have kind of gotten the point, and I think some owners actually get it. You look at teams like the Texas Rangers and the Seattle Mariners, who are usually low spenders. They've spent a lot of money to beef up their team, right? The Rangers, I mean, they spent $500 million before the lockout on two middle infielders. And then you look at the Seattle Mariners, they've gone out and they beefed up. They're really looking to try to contend. The Minnesota Twins really looking to try to contend with that trade that they just made with the New York Yankees, plus some of the signings that they've made. But then you look at teams like the Cincinnati Reds, and what the Cincinnati Reds have done is basically spit on everything that the collective bargaining agreement was trying to get at, spit on the players that were trying to force owners to spend more money and actually compete. And what do the Cincinnati Reds do after the break? After the lockout ends, the Cincinnati Reds unload everybody. They're just like, we're going to trade everybody. We're going to get prospects in return, and we're going to have zero salary on the books for 2022. And it's the same boat that the Pirates are in. How do is it even possible? Is it ever going to happen? Are we ever going to have a salary floor?
I don't think so. And when you think about incentivizing teams, I mean, if you don't win a certain amount of games, can you basically have a losing penalty? That's something that floats in my head. I mean, Jacob Stallings was my catcher in college,
Yeah.
and he just, as you know, he just won the Gold Glove.
He's a
How in
stud.
the world? Yeah, absolute stud. How do you take arguably the best defensive catcher in the National League and trade him? There's only one answer.
Yeah.
They don't want to pay him.
Yeah. I don't I don't know. I don't know what the penalty can be. I have ideas. I mean, you take away draft picks, you could take away this or that, but I mean, maybe if you don't, win a certain amount of games, or maybe if you don't spend a certain amount of money on payroll and you lose a certain amount of games, then all of a sudden maybe you lose out on your revenue sharing. I think that would be a big piece, that all of a sudden owners, especially in Cincinnati and Pittsburgh, would start spending money again because they start losing out on the revenue sharing. They're really not going to make any money because those ballparks are dead unless they get a team in there that people really want to see that travels well.
Absolutely. I mean, the first thing, like you said, is if we get into the owner's pockets and we say, hey, you need to win an X amount of games, otherwise the profit sharing you get, whatever it may be, is cut in either 10% to 50, whatever the number is. Man, that's the first way for owners to say, wait a second, I'm not just running an ATM. I mean, they really are. It doesn't matter what you put on the field. Your input is the players and your output is more money, in the high millions every single year. It's great. But the people who pay the price are the people that make $500K a year, which again sounds like a lot, but you take the average cycle of a Major League Baseball player of under a year, under 2, and then all of a sudden this is your career, and you're like, okay, well, I made $750K in a year, but it's not going to last me forever.
Right.
And that's, at the end of the day, I can see that being, that's not the owner saying, hey, that's not our fault, but at the end of the day, when you start seeing those values and say, hey, well, I had a 5 WAR. Peter Alonso had a 5 for 6 the year he won the MVP. He's worth 40, 50 mil, and you get paid under $1 million. Those are things that will always keep me up at night. And like you said, I wish there was a way to balance it. I think we're onto something, and I don't think it'll ever happen because the owners are just going to say, no, we're not playing if that's the case, because
Yeah.
my leverage is I'm a billionaire and you're not.
Yeah, and it's insane that that's the way that the owners handle it. And you can look at it right now, like in free agency, right? So you've got guys out there still like Carlos Correa, you've got Trevor Story still out there, you got Freddie Freeman still out there, amongst a few other big names that are still free agents. And you have to ask yourself, and I thought about this today, is there possibly a little bit of collusion there amongst the owners, and not because the only ones not signing are the guys who are expected to get these big contracts?
Yeah, you bring up a really good point. I think it was the year like 18 or 19. It was whenever Dallas Keuchel signed with the White Sox, and I think he signed really late. And there were a couple guys.
19.
Yeah, 19. That's what I thought. So you look at their contracts, and you're like, hey, this guy's older, but he won a Cy Young, and basically somebody has to pay him a certain amount to acknowledge the career he's had, because that's the way baseball is done. Because at 6 years, you're a free agent, so he had one good contract before that. So he's 32-ish, over the hill. But he didn't make his money because he was in his prime for those 6 years. And so you go to start to basically back pay the guy, and that doesn't happen. And he sits and sits. There are a couple other people like that. That's just one that comes to mind. But again, that was the only time I can remember, and he's just the only example I have off the top of my head where I said, there's kind of a theme going on here where you're not getting paid what you should during your prime, and then we don't want to back pay you because we're not projecting the same amount, and so that delta gets taken again out of the players' pockets, and that's the owner saying, nope, this is the way we're going to do business.
Yeah, and that's I just don't. You look at Freddie Freeman for one. That trade that the Braves made to go get Matt Olson, that actually shocked me, because I really thought that Freddie Freeman was, because I guess in a way, the face of that organization. I mean, I know a lot of people can look at Ronald Acuna as being the face of that organization, but you've got Freddie Freeman, who's just been a class act his entire career. And then you guys are going back and forth. Everybody knows that you're making a push to try to get him back, try to rip him back away from the Dodgers, and anybody else is trying to sign him. I hear Toronto's in the mix and San Diego's in the mix, which I don't know how that works with Hosmer. But you've got all these guys in the mix, and you're trying to get your first baseman back, and you go and you're like, you know what, screw it. I'm going to push you out the door, and I'm going to go trade for Matt Olson. And then to give him an 8-year extension right after you trade for him. I mean, that is the ultimate slap in the face. And that's kind of, where you get along the lines of the owners and not really caring about the players.
Yeah. And again, at the end of the day, every baseball player is just a number, which stinks. And again, you do have to look at this through a business lens at some point, which again, we do understand and acknowledge, but how do you take a guy who is, we'll call him the Joey Votto of Atlanta? Again, he hasn't done what Joey Votto has, but he kind of means that the same amount, give or take, to that team.
Mm-hmm.
You basically, you just rip the heart out, where you say, well, he's gone, and, we're getting a replacement, which is fine, but there's more to it than just the stats, especially somebody who obviously didn't want to leave, wanted to be there forever, wanted to be on a one-year team. I mean, one team his whole career, and, I know there's tough decisions, but, man, it just doesn't sit well. It just doesn't feel right.
Yeah, and you look at, like you said, I mean, what he meant to that team, but not only that, but what he meant to that city and to the fans. So let me ask you this: we talk about how the fans or the owners aren't loyal to the players. Is there such thing as player loyalty to a team and to a fan base? I mean, do players get attached to where they're at and to the fans that cheer them on so vehemently?
Yeah, there definitely are people like that. And I think if you spend your whole career there, so for instance, 6 years where if you don't get traded throughout your rookie contract, I mean, that means a lot of these guys come in at, 22, 23, 24, and they spend, their 20s there. That's where we start to grow up and become, true adults, even though we're still playing a game. Mm-hmm. And then there is definitely that loyalty where you say, wow, at the end of the day, I did X, Y, and Z, and this is how I get repaid. And like you said, it can't feel right after being there for 10 plus years, winning the team World Series. And it doesn't feel like it wasn't for nothing. But at the end of the day, it's where was that kind of mutual agreement that, hey, like everything was good. I like it here. And his response back shows everything that needs to be said about that. And that's tough.
Yeah.
Again, I'm going to keep repeating this. I know it's a business, but at the same time, where's the loyalty? High turnover is not great, especially for the clubhouse. You get new guys in every year. Someone who's been there the whole time. You got a new manager, a young manager in his career. Obviously, he's a great player and stuff, but consistency definitely helps when you have the same guy in the clubhouse in and out every year who's going to set the tone, be a leader, tell the new guys what to do. I mean, I'm sure he took Acuna and the other guys under his wing and just said, hey, this is how we're going to do things here. And that's gone. There's tons of value there that's just depleted.
Yeah, and like I said, I mean, he was a class act. And for those of you that don't know or haven't seen Freddie Freeman's reaction to what we're talking about, Freddie Freeman's been getting a lot of grief for the Braves going out and getting Matt Olson and him not taking a team-friendly deal. And he said, I'm not going to sit here and keep getting beat up by my city. I love you, Atlanta. It's been fun. I'll see you in October. And I mean, that tells you everything you need to know about Freddie Freeman. Even when he's angry, he was still a class act, still said, I love you. It was fun, but I'll see you in October. Because this guy has poured his heart and soul into that city and into that team, and then winning the World Series, and they're like, all right, cool, bye. And that sucks. That sucks as a human being. I mean, think about, if you were at your work, your place of business, and you worked your butt off and you got all sorts of revenue into your company, and you guys came out and you guys became the best company out there, the number one rated company, and it was all because of a lot of the hard work that you put through, even when you stayed with them when they were down, and they were just like, we're gonna have to let you go. Like, that would suck.
Yeah, that kills. And since we're bringing up business, why does he have to be the one to take a team-friendly deal, right?
Right.
They just won the World Series. The amount of revenue generated there is obviously pretty high, A. And then B, bad example maybe, but the Warriors, I think in like 2012 were worth like $400 million. And now with Steph and everything they've done, they're worth $4 billion with a B. Again, these are ballpark numbers. But again, if you just 10x your company in 10 years – for winning, 3 championships, so they won 1. You're telling me that he didn't make the company at least $200 or $300 million, and so why does he have to be the one to take a team-friendly deal when he helped the team maximize the revenue in the year? Period.
Yeah, and I always hate that notion by fans. I think it's a stupid notion that any player should ever have to take a team-friendly deal. Get paid what you're worth when you're worth it. And to say you got to take a team-friendly deal, why? Tell I always tell the fans when they say something like that, I'm like, all right, tomorrow what I want you to do is go in and tell your boss, you know what? I've worked my ass off for you. I've done everything that I can. I love this company so much that, you know what? I'm going to give you $1 an hour back. Take less money. To give them a team-friendly deal.
Yeah, no, you're right. And again, I understand him wanting to stay, and maybe he did have the option. But at the same time, if the owners are the ones pushing on this revenue and saying, hey, well, you need to do this because this is the way it's going to be, or you have to leave, that also doesn't set a good precedent for other players, because now when these other guys go to get these contracts, and if he takes a team-friendly deal, they're going to say, "Oh, well, the going market is $20 million instead of 30." So that's one thing that hurts too. Where, again, Trevor Bauer signed a 1 year like $40 million deal. Well, Max Scherzer wanted to go get paid. He says, "Hey, I'm as good as Bauer or better. I need 42. That's my going rate, apparently." So that's how players help, I guess we'll say, get things back in their favor. But we're talking about guys that have already been in the league for 6 years. So it doesn't help the guys going through arbitration because you only get a percentage of that cut. So even if he was to take that, it turns out to hurt the players if you ever take a team-friendly deal. I do want that to be on the record 100%. That really hurts all baseball players when it comes to financial gains if you take a team-friendly deal.
Yeah, so let me ask you this. So we got all of the collective bargaining, stuff is out of the way now. So I wanted to get your opinion on all of that stuff. And we've done that, but now I want to talk about these rule changes. So some of these rule changes I'm okay with. I'm okay with the universal DH in the National League. Do you like that being a pitcher?
I think so. When we go talk about the best entertainment value, it's way more entertaining to watch David Ortiz hit versus Greg Maddux. Just point blank, it's better entertainment. Starting in Double-A, if it's a National League versus National League, the starter has to has to hit for themselves. And when he comes up with nobody on, nobody out, you're like, cool. Now I'm going to start the inning automatically with one out. It really makes a huge difference. So again, I never played in the big leagues, and in spring training, there's only DHs. But with that being said, I think it's better for the game. Now, athletes like DeGrom, Syndergaard, Bumgarner, obviously, that sucks. That's a huge advantage, but overall, it's better for the game, I think.
Yeah, and there are a few things about it that I will eventually miss. I'll miss the cat and mouse game of whether or not the pitcher needs to hit in the 6th inning, or if you're going to take them out early to bring in a pinch hitter in a close game, or like Joe Madden used to do all the time, where he'd bring in a reliever, then throw him out into left field while he brought in another reliever to face a lefty, and then go back. That's the type of stuff that I will miss. But overall, I think, unfortunately for the Cubs, because I think they were best suited for this in 2017, 2018, 2019. I think they were an American League team playing in the National League. And I like the idea of adding that extra bat to the National League lineups, because it's one set of rules across the league. You don't have to worry about if you're playing, interleague play in a National League ballpark, your pitcher has to hit. But if you're playing the same team in an American League ballpark, you get the DH. I like the one all the way across the board.
I agree. Who was in the playoffs? Somebody had bases loaded, 1 out, or bases loaded, 2 out in the 4th or 5th inning. Maybe it was the Brewers. Pulled their pitcher early. Bullpen came in and sucked. So they lost. But that's a really cool strategic part of the game that I think a lot of players probably admire. But at the same time, I don't think as many fans care about that as much as saying, I'm missing out on a big fatty who can hit the ball 600 feet but can't play defense.
Yeah, and it was the Brewers that happened to, and I was okay with that when it happened because it's the Brewers. So, that was fine with me.
No, I get that, but I know that what's the deal with the shifts? Do you know the exact rules?
So they're banning the shift. So your shortstop cannot come to the second base side of second base against a left-handed or against a left-handed hitter, and your second baseman can't go to the shortstop side of the bag against a right-handed hitter. It's stupid.
That's what I thought the rule was. I guess if we're against Patrick Mahomes, let's only have one single high safety the whole time, because that's more entertaining. I get it kind of, but at the same time, what kind of rule is that to say, hey, defense, we're putting you on the field, but you have to align this way? That's just not what, like you said, you balance entertainment versus strategy at some point. But why is it my fault that Joey Gallo loves hitting the ball on the ground in the 4-hole?
Yeah. And that's the thing that I don't, necessarily agree with. And I listened, to Jason Benetti today, one of my favorite voices in the game to listen to, calls White Sox games here in Chicago. And I was listening to him. I know I just said that I love the White Sox announcer, right? I know people are like, what the hell? But he is one of my favorite voices in the game to listen to. But he was talking today on the radio, and he was saying that he's okay with the shift, and that he thinks it's going to bring more entertainment value, and guys that can't hit against the shift, they won't strike out as much now. And I call bullcrap. I said it has nothing to do, their strikeout rate has nothing to do with the fact that you're shifting them. It has to do with the fact of they're trying to use launch angle, and their single goal is to hit 40 home runs in a season, and they don't care if they bat 212.
Correct. Yeah, we have demonstrated that just the stat batting average isn't the best way of evaluating players. Again, that's up for interpretation, but obviously there are teams out there that don't value it as much. Otherwise, those guys wouldn't be in the league right now.
Right.
So, like you said, that has nothing to do with it. Their jobs to hit 40 home runs a year. Nobody cares if you strike out or ground out. So, because of that, I'm going to treat every at bat like a home run derby. Otherwise, they would bunt more. They would just slap the ball to third base and hit a double. But again, I like where his head's at. Again, I don't think that's the best take. You'll never know until it happens. But
could you imagine if they pulled a shift like this against, let's say, a guy like Tony Gwynn? Tony Gwynn would have hit 900.
Yeah, maybe 2,000. He would have never gotten out, and I just don't. Just from a game of strategy, nothing's going to make me more mad as a pitcher saying my double play depth, if you will, means my third baseman's going to play with my shortstop is. I'm going to have two guys over here. I get a ground ball right to where the shift should be because that's what the data says he's going to do. I mean, against Derrick Henry, we're not allowed to stack the box. Let's only put 5 guys in. I mean, maybe that's entertaining, I guess, but at the same time, there is a balance of saying, is this also best for the game? And I would argue that if we put the best performance and the best thing for the game, that coaches would adapt, players would adapt, and most importantly, fans would just embrace saying, this is the purest form of the game. Maybe they don't score as much, this and that. But again, they say, the games are too long. Well, that's not going to speed it up. So again, it's this double-edged sword of just saying, what are we actually trying to accomplish here? And I don't think the owners have come out and said it, and we're kind of hinting at what they think.
Yeah, and another thing. Speaking of pissing pitchers off, how do you feel about the pitch clock?
Out of all the rules, it's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. So they tested this in AA and above, starting when I was 2016. And if you don't like the sign, you just step off. So you sit there and you go, okay, shake off. But when you come set, it's just when you come set, the clock stops. So I'll just sit there. I'm pretending the catcher's over here. That's really funny. I just step off. And it resets the clock. It's a dumb rule that has nothing to do with speeding up the game. And again, that's going to shave off what? I don't know, a minute or two each inning.
Yeah.
I don't think the problem is the value. We've talked about marketing before and just how, Major League does a very bad job of marketing their players.
Mm-hmm.
So in general, I think that if we did a true case study and had a consultant come in and basically grab all this data, you'd probably say it's really not the actual game that people don't like, because the game of baseball has been quote unquote slower in action before. But again, we've got people striking out and pitchers throwing harder than ever. I think if people saw it through a different lens and saw that pitching was offense versus just seeing it as defense, then they'd be blown away. I just think that it's the lens. And if we started teaching and training fans how to embrace and enjoy the games, I don't think we'd see any problems here. But again, that takes way too much work.
This is the one that really peeves me the most. Banning the shift peeves me, but this one here is because their complete intention with this is to speed up the game. And here's what I say. If you want to speed up the game, don't make pitchers wait 3.5 minutes for a commercial break.
Yeah. On national TV, like you said, it's usually 2 minutes in between, but then it's 3.5 in the national games or something. So when I pitched the World Baseball Classic, it was on ESPN or MLB TV, one of the two. And I ran out there and threw 4 pitches, quick, just how I usually do. And they said, hey, you've got 2.5 more minutes. I was just what's going on here? So again, you talk about speeding up the game. There's a quick 25 minutes or 30 minutes right there. Boom.
Yeah, and you can't say that owners, the commercial breaks, they pay the bill. Well, you know what? You could do what soccer does. Throw their ad right up in the corner of the TV. You don't have to have a full screen commercial. I don't care if you do side by side. You want to speed up the game, do that. Exactly. You're pointing to your shirt. I know what you're talking about. They're putting ads on the jerseys. They're putting ads on the helmets. They got ads on the walls. I swear to God, if they cut Ivy off of Wrigley to put an ad in there, I'm going to lose my damn mind. Like, I don't like the idea of you've got to speed up the. First of all, the average Major League Baseball game was 20 minutes faster than the average NFL football game. The only difference is the NFL has all of these people that bet on it, has all of these people, and they only play 1 day a week. Well, they really play 3 days a week, but majority of the game are 1 day a week. And so it's a different atmosphere, and people are rabid about the NFL. But for those of us who are rabid about baseball, there's no reason to speed up the game. The game is beautiful in the form that it's in. And the pitch clock, the relievers having to pitch to 3 pitchers, and the shift are just 3 of the worst rules that I've ever seen in my entire life.
I agree. I'm glad you brought up the 1 time a week thing, because I had this argument with somebody. If we did a 2 out of 3 series, for instance, like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, best 2 out of 3 wins, or if you won the first 2, there's no third game or something like that, how much more baseball would be valued and loved and cherished. And I think it's just because Tuesday through Friday, you've got, you're playing 4 or 5 games, 162. You're like, well, no big deal. If I don't catch this one, I'll catch another. Or, hey, they're 10 games back in May. Who cares? So I don't think the game's the problem. I just think the way that things are set up. And there's ways for us to adapt, but I don't think we're even asking the question saying what would make people watch the game more. Again, I love seeing a lefty come in and face a left-handed hitter because that's his job. I love watching guys come in and blow 98 by people. Like, that's an art. And people who want to swing and miss and strike out and look stupid, like, that's their job. I don't want to incentivize them to hit singles if that's not the best thing for them. So let's try to just put this win first attitude, win first mentality from the rules to the owners, to the players, to the managers, and then watch what happens. And then let's market it and let's demonstrate to people why this is better. But I don't think we've put on any type of lens to say, you might not like this, but do you even kind of see why or how, instead of just throwing, things to the wind and saying, oh, well, you have to step off if you've taken 15 seconds to figure out what pitch you want to throw. No, that's has nothing to do with the art of the game.
In a sense, you're trying to fix what's not broke, right? I mean, $10.7 billion last year. People are watching the games. People are going to the games. People are enjoying the game of baseball. What are you doing? $10.7 billion you generated. What? I don't understand. It boggles my mind.
Yeah, like you said, what are you trying to fix, and what's the risk reward here? In playoff games, why would anybody want a playoff game to be shorter? That's with the most on the line. Every pitch means the world. Why wouldn't I want more opportunities and more moments where I'm sitting on the edge of my seat? Like, for instance, when I went and saw the Avengers and the last one, and it was a 3-hour movie, I was mad it wasn't 8 hours. I was like, I'm going to be on this, the edge of my seat this whole entire time, and I don't want it to end. In playoff games, I don't want a 2 hour and 30 minute. I want all this theatrics and things going on here. That's just I don't know. Maybe we just see it differently, but I just think that there's a really bad job of players inside of the league, coaches, owners, not saying, hey, let's do what's best and let's market that and have people understand why this is the best. And I bet we change fans' minds.
Yeah, but that would include spending money, and then the owners clearly don't want to spend money. And it goes back to the pitch clock too in the playoffs, right? Because what are you going to do in the 8th inning of Game 7 when a pitcher has a runner on first base? It's a high pressure situation, and he needs to throw off the runner's timing. Do what he's got to do to hold on to the ball a little bit longer. But now he's got a pitch clock to worry about.
Yeah, it just can't happen. That's a terrible rule. That just goes to show what the owners are thinking. For some reason, that players would never put any of these rules into their contracts. Nobody would ever want this, but those are the agreements that they're forcing players to take to play. I just want people to understand that this is what needed to be done for us to play. That is not good. It is not acceptable. And excuse me for saying we as if I'm still playing.
Do you feel like bigger bases was a necessity? Do you feel like that's going to promote safety as much as it is going to actually? I feel like it's actually going to promote injury because now you've got a bigger target to slide at and you've got more room to take out a runner because all you have to do is make contact with the bag and not overslide it. So now with bigger bags, now you've got more room to go at a guy.
Yeah, I think in theory you're supposed to go around players because there's more on one side of the bag than the other. Again, that's a maybe. I remember watching Bryce Harper get hurt when I was in high A. It was right after the game. They always had the games on in the clubhouse. It was a rainy day and he slipped and he just hit the corner of the bag really awkwardly.
Yeah, I remember.
He was out for some period of time. And so I remember when that happened, one, they should have been playing in those weather conditions anyway, but two, they made this thing, this deal about the bag. And so my first guess without knowing anything is a story like that has something to do with it. But I'm not a position player, so I didn't get to slide too much. But I'm like, well, I guess you go around the bag more if you're sliding second stealing. But again, I don't know how many people actually get hurt, from just hitting the bag. Is that?
Yeah, and when it comes to the rain and stuff, I mean, I'm a carpenter, so I know that if I've got more surface area on a floor that is an exterior floor, you have more potential to slip than you do if you have a smaller surface.
Absolutely, without a doubt. So again, that one doesn't make tons of sense to me. I wonder who brought that up. Again, that's that one of all of them. I'm like, if that makes somebody happy, great.
Yeah.
But why would, like you said, why? It was almost like, why does that even need to be in an agreement? It just feels like it's so below the other concerns that we have.
Are you good with the 12-team playoff?
I think so. The only thing I never liked was the one team playoffs hurt. Play 161, 162 games a year to say, hey, your season's being decided on one game. Never like that idea.
Yeah.
But more teams in the playoffs means more money in people's pockets. Longer playoffs are fun.
Mm-hmm.
But again, you start having guys throw even more in a longer season. You're just like, man, how long can we really do this for? So those are the first things that come to my head.
And one of the things that flew under the radar when they did the 12-team playoff and they eliminated the one-game play-in game and made it a 3-game series, and I think the top 2 seeds get a bye. One of the things that slipped in under the radar that I ended up seeing just by chance was that there are no more game 163s. If you are tied at the end of a season for a division, it actually has tiebreakers now. So you don't play it out to win your division anymore if you're tied at the end of 162. It's tiebreakers. Believe it's like head-to-head record. And if you're tied in everything, it goes to a coin flip. That's terrible.
No, yeah. See, I'm talking about when you had the extra wild card team going in, like you said. If we ever didn't have the game decided on the field, then that's criminal. I mean, that's a whole. I was not trying to compare that. That's a whole nother story. That's brutal. I just kicked over to the comments. I was in a private chat the whole time. So, what's up, Luke, Mike, Doc, and Drew? Thanks for hanging out with us tonight.
Yeah, for sure. There's a couple things going on. I see Bucks in there just causing trouble like he always does. So that's usually what goes on. So let me ask you this before. I know you got to get going here shortly. I want to ask you something, that regards something that I'm trying to get into, which is, into media, working in the game, something that I still haven't figured out how to get into. But, maybe when I'm 60 or 70, I'll get in there. I'll be a grumpy old guy that doesn't let anybody use steroids into the Hall of Fame. But anyway, how do players feel about media that don't ask the tough questions or constantly? We were talking offline and I had brought up something about John Morosi. Like, I can't stand that guy. He's a clown. But how do players feel about media that like they don't ask the tough questions or they're constantly getting stories wrong? Do they have respect for the guys like myself? Like if I'm on, like I was on last week, I had Andrew Romine on the show last week and I was talking to him and I had I just, talked baseball with him. Like I was, like we were friends. Like I just wanted to talk the game. So I didn't care what I threw out at him and I threw out some tough questions. do players respect that more than they do the guys who are always up there asking the same boring questions?
Yeah, and whenever, again, I didn't get interviewed as much as all these other guys, but with that being said, whenever somebody asked a question that you just wanted an arbitrary answer, I felt like I was on Bull Durham, where I was new Lelouch, and he just was like, oh, and whatever it takes to win, and God willing, blah, blah, blah. That's just such a waste. So I was never upset with a tough question. I thought that there's a decent way to balance it, and I thought that if you're going to ask something like that it was either kind of beforehand saying, hey, like, I'm going to ask something here, or just kind of like a common professional courtesy. It says, hey, like, this is kind of the address we're going. And as long as you do it with, I guess we'll say professionally, then everything was fine. Because, the wasteful questions, it's like, what am I doing here? I've got, PT to do. I've got to see my family. I've got a bus to catch. There's just so many other things to do instead of just asking the dumb question. And then getting the story wrong, that one's tough because you've got so many things at the tip of your finger. And, we're usually not interviewed until 20 or 30 minutes after the game. So it's like, dude, can you just go check Google real quick and just confirm everything? And I'm sure Google's wrong sometimes, but there's, when you hear something where you're like way off, and you're like, come on, man, like you had 20 minutes of sitting here and BS and like just go do a quick fact check.
Yeah, it was funny because when Andrew had agreed to come on the show, I was like, all right, what do I want to ask him? This guy played for the Cubs last year. It's, do I want to ask him, hey, did you get to meet Ryan Sandberg? Or, hey, who's your favorite teammate or any of that? And I'm like, you know what? Never mind. And he actually even said before the broadcast, I said, hey, is there anything you don't want me to touch on? He's like, look, I'm not here to talk to you about who my favorite teammate is. I'm not here to, he's like, I've answered those questions 1,000 times. He's like, let's just talk ball. And that kind of eased everything and eased my mind because I was like, oh, thank God. Because maybe he'll actually answer some of the questions I do have. No,
that's a great point. And like you said, there's always the human aspect, and that gets thrown away a lot of times. And so, like you said, just saying, hey, what's on the table and what's not? Just asking that just shows, one, the professional courtesy. Two, you care about his opinion. And three, you're just on a mutual level and agreement of what's expected. And every time you see a fight in the media, it's really just because of you're not setting that clear expectations about what can and can't be addressed or what should or shouldn't. And again, that took you one second to look really good and build rapport right away. And so I commend you for that. And again, why didn't you ask me those questions?
I did the first time we met.
No, I know you did. I had to throw it out there, though.
Yeah, for sure. Well, RC, look, man, I know you got to get running. It's always a pleasure. You're always welcome to call on the show. Let me know anytime you're available to talk some baseball with me. And hey, if your buddy who you didn't want to mention, who I think is Sean Manaea, if you ever want to get one of those guys on the show, and they want to come in and talk baseball in the off season, obviously, because they're busy during the season. They've only got 162 games. It's not like he's got a ton to do. But if he ever wants to talk in the off season, feel free to throw him our way.
For sure. Let me reach out to some people, cast a wide net, and see if you can get some more baseball minds in here, and some that have a little bit more experience at that next level, so they can break things down differently. But this was great. Thanks again. Let's chat soon. We got a lot of baseball to talk, and hopefully DeGrom and Scherzer get to pitch back-to-back for 162 games. That's how you fix baseball right there.
Yeah, I completely 110% agree with you. So, hey, it was always fun, and we'll definitely talk here soon, and we'll get some more baseball talk going for sure.
Can't wait. Thanks again. Take it easy.
All right, have a good one, RC. All right, so that was RC Orland, man. Always great to talk to RC. I am going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit of football. Stay with me. Be back. Give me 2 minutes. If I can find the button, which I cannot. Where did it go? There it is. See ya.
Hey, gang, it's Commissioner Cooper from TSS Fantasy. We are the fantasy show of the people. That means we give the people what they want. Expert fantasy advice, leading medical and legal analysis, free contests, and innovative games to keep you entertained. Watch us live with the Tiki Live app on the Belly Up Sports channel, subscribe to us on YouTube, or follow us on all social media platforms. Visit TSSFantasy.com today for all the latest updates from the Fantasy Show of the People. We put the fun in fantasy.
Yeah!
Instead of the mayo.
Over sour cream, yeah.
Right. That's because you have high cholesterol. Okay. If you drafted Julio Jones,
You got ghosted.
This is amazing. TSS Fantasy is like an orgasm. If I had a cigarette, I'd smoke it. I'm pumped to be here. This is the show of shows.
TSS Fantasy, the fantasy show of the people.
I was built to last with the webs I'm weaving. I could change the past with all I'm achieving. Got my foot on the gas, never stop competing. If you break my glass, then this life's gonna end.
I wanna be the best in the game, invest in my name. Check no restraints, I'm obsessed with the pain. I ingest, I retain, assess and I change. Possessed by the thought I'll be free one day from society's restraints. Money, clout and fame, mud, disease, a plague. We all love to hate, have to play the game, have to make a name. All our insecurities are on display. This is war with the enemy, think that it was meant to be. Living in a time where disease is on every screen. I won't let them fester me, I know most are festering. Negativity is a plague for the mentally weak. No mercy, all I got is working. Never stop searching, never quench the thirsty. I'm toxic and psychotic, with this logic you can't stop it. It's been chronic since I was a boy, so neurotic and chaotic. Go! To last with the webs I'm weaving, I could change the past with all